Shabbat Shalom and Happy New Year. This week's Torah portion, Vayechi, is the very last Torah portion in the book of Genesis, and is therefore rather fitting that it comes at the very end of the secular year. We find ourselves at a time of transition on this secular Gregorian calendar, and also at a time of transition in our Jewish Torah reading cycle. Not only are we going from one book to the next, but also a big change in terms of the theme and content and the feel of the Torah. We go from the story of a family that we have in the book of Genesis, the story of Abraham and Sarah and their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, to the book of Exodus, where we are no longer talking about a family, but talking about a people. One of the things that is most interesting to me about Parashat Vayechi is the ethical will that we find in the Torah portion, where Jacob is speaking to each of his sons before the end of his life. We would think that as he reaches the end of his life, that perhaps with some vision and some distance, he would be able to have a very positive message for each of his children. But in fact, that's not what we get. We get something that's very human, the emotions are raw, and we see that not everything that he says is necessarily positive. Although this may be surprising and disappointing, we do see that in our own lives that this is somewhat realistic. We're not always able, even in moments that we'd like to be finer moments, not always able to ascend to that higher level. And I think about what it means for us as we hit the end of 2020 and start 2021, and we say farewell to a year that was really quite difficult for everybody. How are we going to look back on it? Are we going to be bitter? Are we going to be angry? Or do we find a way to look back over the year and say, what can I learn from this? How can I develop? What positives can I bring from this past year that can help me with the year ahead? 2021 hopefully will be a much better year than 2020, but that is not something that is guaranteed to us. And it's not something that's going to happen on its own. It's something that we're going to have to work for. It's going to require us to take a look at the past and not drag the bad attitudes that we've had during this last year, deservedly so, and to try to create a sense of constructive forward motion. It won't be easy, but it is what we need to do in order to create a better year than the one we were just in. This week at Bethel, the Heights Synagogue, we observe the following yurtzites: Frida Amsel, Morton Glazer, Annie Mall, Louis Schifrin, Tamar Tepper, Sandy Cantleberry, Fanny Eisenberg, Jack Gordon, Jacques R. Simons, Steve Cernajoy, Samuel Sofer, Charlotte Hope Saltzman, Linda Robinson, Fanny Fromson, Lillian Ratner, Celia Sobel, Dora Tract, and Janet Davidson. Wishing you all again Shabbat Shalom and a happy, healthy 2021.